Okay guys, so there's a few things that I'm going to talk to you about before we get started on this, and it has to do with close reading and why we do it. So if you flip back to the front of your packet here, there's a couple of things that I want you to concentrate on in the did you know part. So, a few things. Did you know it is important to read the prompt at least 3 times, right? 3 times. Why would you do that? Why would you read a prompt 3 times?
To get a full understanding.
Right, you would want to have a full understanding of what you're being asked, right? What you're being asked to do. Okay, and then the next tip here says you should try to state in your own words, paraphrase what you are being asked to write. Okay, so what we're going to do here in just a moment is we're going to take our bookmarks and we're going to practice some of these annotation tools. And so we have, the first one is cloud, right? And if you're clouding around tricky words, you might also cloud around words that are really significant or words that you want to make sure that you pay attention to so you don't lose sight of those. And then underlining, for underlining important ideas, obviously you want to underline something that's not too terribly long, because if you go too long, then what happens if you underline too much?
Then it's like the entire paragraph.
Exactly. If you wind up underlining the entire paragraph, how much of that paragraph is really important or stands out to you? None of it, or hardly any. You're like, oh, okay, the whole thing, whoa, I don't know what to look at anymore. And then for questions, what questions do you have? So definitely as you read, you want to be wondering, you want to be thinking it through, you want to be trying to figure it out, so that's what question marks are for. Things that surprised you. So if you see something in there where you go, oh, I didn't expect that. Oh, that sounds unusual. Wow, that's a different fact than what I'm used to. That might get an exclamation point. And then this last one for connects to important idea. If you draw an arrow or something like that for a connection, that can be a good idea. And you know from language arts classes that there are 3 types of connections, right? Right, there's the connection where it's
Text to self.
Text to self.
World and text to text.
Yeah, text to world and text to text. Perfect. Okay, so any one of those you would use an arrow. Okay, but anyway, what we're going to do here, let's go back. Let's take a look at our prompt up here for a second, and let's practice using these tools. So I want you guys to take a couple of minutes. I'm going to do that up here as well. You make the marks that are most appropriate to you, and I'm going to make the marks that make sense to me. Okay? Use the marks, but also make sure to show your thinking. Try your best to paraphrase the prompt. All right, so just use this as a guideline. I want you guys to consider, if you flip your bookmark over, you're going to notice, it's a little dirty trick, but I decided to use both sides of it. And here we have critical thinking elements, right? And this goes along with annotation and close thinking, or close reading as well. So here we're talking about information, right? And as you read a source or as you interact with any kind of text, you're going to be getting information, and so it's going to be your job to think through the facts and data and evidence or experiences we use to figure things out, okay? Now, assumptions are kind of like a gut feeling or a gut reaction to something. You don't necessarily know why you think what you do, you just have this kind of impulsive reaction to something. And then we've got inferences. Inferences are where you're looking at the information and the information leads you to believe something in particular. And then finally, questions. It's important to make sure that you're asking questions as you're going through the sources as well, because the sources will, or the questions that you ask sometimes can help you to clarify your understanding. If you're thinking about what do I not really get in this particular passage, sometimes if you ask a question around it, you're halfway there toward figuring it out. Okay? So, what I'm going to do on mine, and I don't know if you guys did this already, but I'm going to go back through here, and for these marks that I made, I'm going to make sure that I'm showing my thinking on that as well. So if you guys want to do that at the same time, you're welcome to. So like, I underlined this part, make a difference, right? So the reason why I underlined it, I thought it was important, But I can also ask a question about it. It's something I'm kind of like, well, how does someone really make a difference? And then this word traits. How many of you guys bubbled the word traits? Okay, all right. So I decided to bubble this one too, and the reason why I put the cloud around it is because I know it's a really crucial word for understanding the prompt, right? But then thinking about another word for traits. What's another word for traits? What do you think?
Characteristics.
Okay, nice. Okay, characteristics. What's another word for traits? What does that mean to you?
Personality.
Yeah, it might be kind of like going along with personality or something like that. It's kind of like those little facets that make someone the person that they are, right? Okay, and then I also decided to put a little cloud around the word influential, but I added a question mark next to it. I thought this was a key word in the prompt, which is why I clouded it. But I was wondering, well, what sort of influence are we talking about? And another thing too is I was kind of wondering, are we talking like influence good or influence bad? And what would you guys assume?
Good. 'Cause
Okay.
you're making like a difference in the world.
Aha, yes, okay, so you're inferring also using that word of making a difference, right? Okay, good, cool. So are we talking influence good or bad? And another thing, definitely, I mean, you guys can see from my example here, my handwriting is not great, okay? And I'm not worried about that so much. Instead, what I'm worried about is just getting my thinking down on the paper. As long as I can read it myself, and I think maybe a teacher might be able to kind of make out what I'm writing, that's totally fine. It's not a penmanship class. So, all right, so we assume good, but also we can infer good based on the word difference. Okay. Great. And then I also underlined this part here of making an impact on the world. So it's someone, these are going to be big people, I think. Like people who have made a tremendous change, not maybe just like a little tiny thing. Like this isn't someone who's necessarily just, I don't know, if they've walked up to an elderly person and said, here, take my seat on the bus. Like we're talking bigger change than that, right? Or bigger impact. People who have accomplished a lot, maybe. Okay, and then when I paraphrased mine, I don't know how you guys paraphrased yours, but when I paraphrased mine, I wrote, what traits do influential people have in common? Because that's kind of going back to this word, traits, right? What are those key traits that these influential people seem to have? And that's what this prompt is all about. Okay, and that's also, a big thing here is I don't want you guys to necessarily be able to answer the question without having read anything, right? Instead, we want to use our sources to guide us to figure out what those key traits might be.